Welcome back to The Deep Dive. We're here to unpack the best thinking in business and beyond, really helping you get informed. Today, we're digging into something fundamental. What really separates the companies that last, the true winners, from the ones that just, well, sort of get by or even disappear? Is it just about working harder, having smarter ideas? Or is there something more, maybe like a blueprint, underneath it all? Last time, we spent a lot of time looking outwards. Right. Understanding the industry, the competitive forces, kind of mapping the battlefield.
The landscape view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, for part two of our look at competitive strategy, we're shifting the focus inwards. Our goal today isn't just about understanding the world outside the company. It's about figuring out a company's specific, defensible place within that world.
Its strategic position.
Right. We're going to do that by unpacking Michael Porter's three generic strategies. These like the foundational choices, the big decisions every company needs to make.
Yeah.
Startup or giant multinational, doesn't matter. It's all about getting that sustainable competitive advantage. So we'll look at cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. We'll explore what each one demands because the commitment needed is huge company-wide. And also, critically, the risks. What happens if you don't choose clearly?
Pitfalls, yeah. They're significant.
It's not just abstract theory. This is really a masterclass in those core decisions that determine if a company actually thrives or just struggles.
Okay, so let's unpack this central idea first. Because it trips up a lot of people, even experienced leaders. It's so easy to think, well, if we just run the business really well, efficiently, productively, hire great people, that operational excellence alone should be enough, right? Success should follow.
It seems intuitive, doesn't it? Just be good at what you do.
But what if that's just not the whole picture? What if there's something else, something deeper, more structural, that really drives lasting success, something beyond just being operationally sound? Well, what's fascinating here is how Hamilton Helmer tackles this directly. In his book, Seven Powers, which is really insightful, he makes this almost provocative claim. He says, operational excellence by itself is not enough. Your business must attain power, capital P, power.
Power, okay.
And he uses this really stark contrast to make his point. Intel's early memory business versus its later microprocessor business. He points out both initially seem to have everything going for them. Unexcelled leadership, technical depth, manufacturing prowess, and exploding the works. Operationally, they looked set.
Sounds like a winning formula.
You'd think so, but the memory business, it ended up being this painful, costly exit, while the microprocessor business, that turned Intel into this absolute powerhouse, high margins, global dominance lasting for decades.
Wow. So same company, same operational strengths initially.
Right. The difference, Helmer argues, wasn't operational. It was simply that one business had power and the other didn't. It's a really powerful, almost brutal illustration of strategy in action.
That comparison really hits home. So what does this power actually mean for us, for the businesses we see every day? It sounds like without that clear, durable, defensible edge, what Helmer calls power, even a company that's run like a well-oiled machine, hitting all its operational targets, it can still struggle. It can lose ground, fail to really thrive. It's just not enough to be good or even great at the execution. You need that fundamental strategic advantage, that defensible spot.
Exactly. It's the difference, like you said, between doing things right and doing the right things right. And Helmer defines strategy itself really clearly. He calls it a route to continuing power in significant markets.
A route to continuing power. Okay.
So it underscores that strategy isn't just about, clever tactics or making things a bit better each year. It's about making very specific, deliberate, often really tough choices. Choices designed to gain and then critically maintain a durable differential return.
Meaning consistently earning more or creating more value than competitors.
Precisely. And doing it in a way that's hard for them to copy or undermine over time. That's where the durability comes in. And this is exactly where Porter's three generic strategies fit in. They offer those distinct, overarching blueprints for how a company competes to get and keep that elusive, essential power in its market. They define the path to that defensible edge.
Strategy 1, cost leadership.
Right. Let's dive into the first one then. It's a strategy many businesses aim for, but honestly, very few seem to truly master it with the kind of depth needed. Cost leadership. We hear that term thrown around a lot, maybe even used a bit loosely. But what does it really mean to be a cost leader? Beyond just, having cheap prices on the shelf, what's under the hood?
Well, at its absolute core, Cost leadership means being the producer with the structurally lowest costs in your entire industry, or at least
Yeah.
in a major segment. And you're right, it's so much more than just low prices. Offering low prices can easily become a race to the bottom, destroying profits for everyone involved.
Right, a margin killer.
Exactly. True cost leadership is about having a fundamental structural cost advantage. It's baked into your operations so deeply that it lets you consistently offer competitive prices, often the lowest, while actually maintaining better profitability than your rivals.
So lower costs and better margins.
That's the goal. And it doesn't happen by accident or just by being efficient for a quarter. It demands this relentless, pervasive, company-wide obsession with minimizing cost. Every single part of the value chain, every process, every decision, every investment gets scrutinized through that cost lens. And the requirements to actually achieve and sustain this, they're incredibly demanding, almost obsessive. First, you absolutely need efficient scale facilities. Your factories, your distribution centers, your service operations, they have to be built for optimal capacity. Leveraging massive economies of scale to spread huge fixed costs over enormous output. That drives the per-unit cost way down.
Like a giant automated plant or a huge data center.
Precisely. That scale allows for automation and standardization that smaller players just can't match. Second, there's this aggressive pursuit of cost reductions from experience. The more you do something, the better and cheaper you get at it. That's the learning curve effect. It has to be actively managed. Third, unbelievably tight cost and overhead control. It's non-negotiable. Every single expense, from HQ rent to marketing budgets, is squeezed and justified.
And frills.
Absolutely. And often, true cost leaders actively avoid marginal customer accounts. They focus on high-volume, standardized business where they can maximize efficiency. They don't want to spend resources on costly, low-volume customization for demanding clients. And this cost minimization, it has to permeate everything. R&D focuses on process efficiency, not fancy features. Customer service is streamlined. Sales focuses on volume. Advertising is efficient, not extravagant. You strip away anything that doesn't directly lower the cost of the basic, acceptable product or service. That's how you build real cost leadership power.
That sounds incredibly disciplined, almost austere, like you said. It immediately makes me think of Walmart. They're the classic example, right? Reading about Sam Walton, his philosophy was so explicit, almost a mantra. Keep our prices as low as possible by keeping our costs as low as possible. It wasn't just a slogan for them.
No, absolutely not. It was deeply embedded. Walton's story shows it wasn't luck or just getting big. It was this incredibly disciplined, system-wide effort, built piece by painstaking piece. He talks about key people like David Glass and Ron Mayer and how they built this really revolutionary, sophisticated, and efficient distribution system.
The logistics side.
Yeah, they pioneered specific tactics, things like merchandise assembly, cross-docking, and transshipment. These were processes designed purely to move goods from supplier to shelf with minimal handling, minimal storage time.
Cross-docking, like goods come in one door and go straight out another onto a store truck.
Pretty much. Maybe some quick sorting, but ideally never sitting long in a warehouse. That slashed logistics costs, cut inventory holdings, sped everything up. It was a genuine logistical innovation back then, and it translated directly into lower prices and better margins. Pure cost leadership in action.
And here's where, for me, it gets really fascinating. It shows the kind of foresight needed. Walmart didn't just say low cost. They engineered everything, even using cutting-edge tech to be low cost. Think about that early investment in satellite technology. Walton mentions committing, what, $24 million back in 1983? That was a massive bet for a retailer then.
Huge, almost audacious.
But why? His stated reason was crystal clear: to get numbers as quickly as I can get them. What advantage did that speed give them?
Oh, that investment was strategically brilliant. Truly shows the depth of their commitment. Having that real-time data flowing via satellite from every store back to HQ and the distribution centers, it gave them an absolutely unparalleled edge. They could see what was selling fast, restock instantly, understand price impacts almost in real time. Think about inventory management, negotiating with suppliers, adjusting prices on the fly.
Competitors were still waiting for weekly reports or...
Exactly. Still using slower, traditional methods. They simply couldn't react with the same speed or precision. Walmart built this operational moat, this form of power, through information velocity. It was incredibly hard to copy because their whole system, logistics, IT, decision-making, was built around that single relentless goal. Absolute cost leadership. It wasn't just a tactic, it was an embedded capability.
That's a perfect illustration. It shows how deep and pervasive that commitment has to be. Structural, cultural, technological. It's not superficial. And it's not necessarily permanent either, right? Some sources mention companies might even change their strategy over time, maybe shift from cost leadership towards innovation.
That's right. Strategic flexibility is key, but it highlights that cost leadership is a deliberate choice, a distinct, demanding path, one you might evolve from, maybe, but it always represents a fundamental strategic decision with massive internal consequences.
So for you listening, whether you're running a huge company or just starting out understanding these cost levers, even if you're not aiming to be the absolute cheapest, it's still crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely vital. It's about knowing where your costs really are, finding efficiencies, understanding how that impacts your pricing power and your ability to create sustainable value. It's a mindset that helps any business, no matter the core strategy.
Strategy 2, differentiate.
Okay, let's swing the pendulum completely to the other end of the strategic spectrum, differentiation. If cost leadership is all about being the cheapest, differentiation is about being unique. In a world full of choices, what makes a company really stand out? Stand out in a way that customers don't just notice, but are actively willing, maybe even eager, to pay more for.
Pay a premium.
Exactly. How do companies create that unique, perceived value, build that different kind of power?
Differentiation is precisely about creating something that customers see as uniquely valuable, something that goes way beyond just a low price tag. And that uniqueness, it isn't just about the physical product. It can come from so many places. Innovative design like Apple often does, an iconic brand image that people aspire to, proprietary technology that no one else has.
Superior customer service.
Absolutely. Or a user experience that's just seamless and delightful. Anything, really, that makes the offering distinct and, importantly, demonstrably better in the customer's eyes. But the absolute key is this. Customers have to value that uniqueness enough to justify paying more. It's not enough to just be different. You have to be different in a way that matters to them and commands that premium price, creating value they'll pay for. And to pull this off consistently, well, it usually requires some serious capabilities and a deep cultural commitment, often expensive ones. Strong R&D is frequently vital, right, for continuous innovation, staying ahead technologically, using high-quality materials or inputs to ensure the product feels premium and lives up to the promise.
Marketing plays a huge role too, I imagine.
Oh, massive. Extensive, often sophisticated marketing is critical. You have to communicate that unique value prop effectively, build the brand equity, shape how people perceive you. A skilled sales force can educate customers on the subtle benefits, reinforce the value, and truly excellent customer service creates that premium, hassle-free experience that sets you apart.
So it builds a reputation for quality or innovation or maybe just being the best at service.
Exactly. It all comes back to deeply understanding what your target customers really value, maybe even things they don't know they value yet, and then consistently delivering that in a way nobody else can match, or at least not as well. That's how you build durable differentiation power.
When you talk about differentiation, one company just leaps out, Apple, especially with the Macintosh launch. I remember reading how they turned Xerox's unfulfilled vision of a mouse-driven graphical desktop into the industry-changing Macintosh, creating the computer for the rest of us.
Yeah.
That wasn't just specs, was it?
No, not at all. It was a whole new paradigm, an intuitive way to interact with a computer, that graphical interface, the mouse. It was a dramatically superior user experience compared to the command line interfaces that dominated back then.
So Xerox had the tech first.
They did. They developed the core ideas at Tupperware. But as the story goes, they didn't really see the potential or know how to commercialize it effectively for a mass market. Apple, driven by Steve Jobs' vision, had the strategic insight and the capability to take that technology, refine it, make it incredibly user-friendly, beautiful even, and desirable. They saw the potential Xerox missed.
So differentiation isn't just features, it's about vision and execution.
Absolutely. Translating a tech advantage into a compelling, holistic customer experience. Something that resonated emotionally, built intense loyalty. That's real power.
Starbucks is another great one, right? Taking coffee, a commodity, and differentiating it. Howard Schultz talked about how new products will refresh the brand, not dilute it. Always pushing for the next big thing.
Constant innovation.
It wasn't just about the coffee itself, was it? It was the whole third place concept, that unique, elevated experience, a haven between home and work.
Precisely. Starbucks built an entire brand around the atmosphere, the curated product lines, the personalized service, that consistent ritual. They turned everyday coffee drinking into this premium, almost aspirational daily event. total differentiation. And it's not just retail. Think about Microsoft Azure. Satya Nadella described their strategy to differentiate Azure with our data and AI capabilities, and then making those advanced tools available to third-party developers.
Using unique tech services as the differentiator.
Exactly. They brought in experts, transformed their cloud offering. It wasn't just about storage and compute anymore. It became about analyzing, learning from massive data sets. That's a powerful differentiator for enterprise customers building power in that complex cloud space.
And differentiation can get even more personal, can it? Beyond just the product or service itself. I recall reading about mass customization and one-to-one marketing.
Yes. The idea of tailoring things individually.
Right. Creating a mass customizer
Hmm.
that efficiently gives people exactly what they want, or a one-to-one marketer that learns individual needs and preferences.
Yeah.
Building that learning relationship that gets smarter over time.
That's an incredibly powerful form of differentiation, creating deep loyalty, a personal form of power. The Walden Books Preferred Readers program is a classic early example.
A bookstore discount card.
Yeah, but it wasn't just the discount. By identifying themselves, customers allowed Walden Books to track their purchases. This let them differentiate through personalized service. They could then proactively tell you, hey, your favorite author has a new book out, or there's a signing next week you might like. It turned a generic transaction into this ongoing, valuable learning relationship. The service literally got better for you with every interaction. Makes it very hard for a competitor to steal you away.
That personal touch creates sticky loyalty.
Definitely. And think about examples like Cirque du Soleil, Starbucks again, Dyson. They didn't just compete better in an existing market, they arguably created new market space through differentiation.
Yes.
They often priced against completely different alternatives that non-customers were using. Cirque wasn't just a cheaper circus. It competed against theater, opera, other high-end entertainment. Dyson wasn't just another vacuum. It offered superior technology appealing to people frustrated with existing options. They redefined the value proposition, attracting new customers, creating new categories of power.
So for you listening, whether it's product innovation, brand building, incredible service, understanding how to add that unique value differentiation, it's absolutely paramount.
It's not just being different for difference's sake.
Right. It's about standing out in a meaningful, defensible way, something that resonates with customers, earns their loyalty, and justifies that premium. Finding and cultivating your unique source of power that others can't easily copy.
Strategy 3, focus, niche strategies.
Okay, so we've covered the demanding path of being the absolute cost leader and the equally demanding path of differentiating across a broad market. But let's be realistic. What if your company just can't be the lowest cost producer overall? Or maybe you can't successfully differentiate across the entire vast mainstream market. Is there still a way? Is there a viable, defensible path to competitive advantage, to lasting power, especially for maybe a smaller player or someone entering a new field?
That's a really important question, one that countless businesses grapple with, especially if they're new or don't have massive resources. And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly where the focus strategy comes in, often called niche strategies. This approach involves a really targeted effort. You select a particular slice of the market, maybe a very specific customer group with unique needs, or a particular geographic area, or even a specialized product line.
Okay, narrow it down.
Exactly. And then you tailor your entire strategy to serve that chosen niche incredibly well. You can do this in two main ways. You can aim for cost focus, being the lowest cost provider within that specific niche. Or you can pursue differentiation focus, offering highly differentiated products or services designed specifically for that niche.
So it's applying cost leadership or differentiation, but within a much smaller pond.
Precisely. The power here comes from deep specialization and tailoring. You become the expert, the go-to provider for that specific group. And success here, it demands an incredibly deep, almost intimate understanding of your target niche, their specific needs, their preferences, their pain points. You need to know these customers better than anyone else.
Better than the big guys trying to serve everyone.
Far better. That deep understanding lets you serve the niche more effectively, maybe more efficiently, than the broadline competitors who, by definition, can't tailor things so precisely without messing up their mass market strategy. But crucially, it also requires immense discipline. You have to resist the temptation to stray outside your chosen segment. As you get successful, the urge to expand can be huge.
Go after adjacent markets, bigger customer groups.
Right. But maintaining that sharp focus is absolutely key to keeping the unique advantage, the power you built in that niche. Losing focus often means losing your edge.
That idea of deep, granular understanding really rings true. You see it working in lots of places, like in financial services.
Oh, definitely.
Smaller banks or specialized non-banks, they find ways to thrive, right? Even against the huge players. They do it through unique value propositions tailored to specific geographic areas or
Well,
customer niches.
absolutely. It's not just wishful thinking. It acknowledges that even against the giants, smaller, more agile players can win by specializing. Understanding a specific group better, maybe serving them more personally, more responsively.
It's not just about size then, it's about strategic fit.
Exactly. Fit and alignment. If you can give a specific segment a product or service that perfectly matches their unique needs, you create value. The big players just can't replicate without diluting their main strategy. It gives you distinct power within that segment. You become the indispensable provider for that group.
And thinking about defining segments, that geocoding example is fascinating. Targeting millionaires for surveys by classifying hundreds of thousands of neighborhoods.
From the millionaire next door.
That's a really practical application of a focus strategy, isn't it? Instead of just broadcasting widely and wasting resources, it's about deeply understanding and reaching a specific geographically defined segment. Super efficient targeting.
Indeed. Geocoding shows how data can really empower a focus strategy. Give it teeth. It allows for that granular targeting, making sure your marketing, your product, your distribution are all precisely aligned with where your specific customers are and what they need. It's narrow but deep engagement. And while some sources warn against confusing a niche strategy with a truly market-creating strategy,
Right, there's a distinction.
they also explicitly say that niche strategies can often be very effective. Delta's Song airline, even though it ultimately failed for various reasons, was basically an attempt at focused cost leadership, targeting a specific type of traveler with a tailored low-cost offering within the bigger airline industry. The failure wasn't necessarily the focus, but maybe the execution or other factors. The discipline of focus itself remains a powerful tool.
So for you listening, identifying and really truly understanding a specific segment, whether it's defined by customer type, location, a particular need you can meet exceptionally well, that can be an incredibly powerful way to compete.
Especially for newer or smaller businesses.
Right. It's about choosing to be, a big fish in a carefully chosen small pond, rather than getting lost as a tiny fish in the vast, undifferentiated ocean. It's about carving out your unique pocket of power.
The danger of lacking a clear choice.
Okay, we've laid out these three pretty distinct paths to competitive advantage. Cost leadership, differentiation, focus. Each one demanding incredible discipline, consistency, a real single-mindedness. But now, the critical question. What happens if a company tries to do it all? Tries to walk all three paths at once? Or maybe even worse, just doesn't really commit to any path, just sort of drifts along.
Yeah, the strategic indecision problem.
What are the consequences of that? Failing to make a clear choice.
Well, connecting this back to the whole idea of competitive strategy and building power, this leads directly to what Porter called the critical danger of being stuck in the middle. And this isn't just like underperforming slightly, it's a strategic dead zone. It happens when a company fails to commit decisively, tries to be both low cost and differentiated at the same time, but crucially doesn't achieve either one effectively enough to gain any real advantage.
So they end up mediocre at both.
Exactly. They end up with costs that aren't low enough to truly compete on price, and an offering that isn't unique or valuable enough for customers to pay a premium. This strategic ambiguity, this lack of clarity, it almost inevitably leads to below average performance. Marketing messages get diluted, internal operations get confused. There's no clear value proposition for any customer segment.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Precisely. Their efforts are fragmented, scattered. They simply can't build any sustainable power.
That sounds less like a risk and more like a guarantee of eventual trouble. Do we have good, maybe even painful example of this? A company that tried to be everything and ended up nowhere, proving this stuck-in-the-middle danger.
Oh, there's a stark cautionary tale involving the Ouya console. Remember that?
Vaguely, yeah. The little Android console.
That's the one. It launched with this incredibly ambitious and frankly contradictory strategic goal. It tried to achieve both differentiation and low cost simultaneously. Their stated aim was developing the cheapest hardware in the industry, A&D providing great gaming experiences.
Cheapest hardware and great games. Sounds good on paper, maybe.
Maybe. But the reality, trying to deliver both proved impossible. The hardware was cheap, yes, but the great gaming experiences, they often fell short. Limited game library, performance issues. They didn't capture the serious gamers who wanted true differentiation and performance. And they didn't really appeal to the mass market casual gamer who might have prioritized just sheer affordability and access to big popular titles, like on a phone.
So they didn't satisfy either group. Nope. The result, spectacular failure. The company ended up shopping itself to acquirers, apparently based more on the talent of its staff than the actual strength of the console business. The console itself was essentially dead, unable to deliver convincingly on either strategic promise. A classic case of being stuck right in the middle and losing all power.
That's a textbook example, isn't it? Trying to please everyone, ending up pleasing no one. It really highlights just how incredibly hard it is to genuinely achieve both aggressive low cost and compelling differentiation at the same time.
It's exceptionally difficult.
Maybe a giant like Amazon appears to do it, but they often achieve scale in one area first, then use that power to move into others, or they differentiate for Prime members while being cost-effective elsewhere. Right, there are nuances, but for most companies, most of the time, that middle ground, not the cheapest, not the best, it's a death trap. It absolutely is. And often, falling into this trap isn't just bad luck or market shifts. It's frequently a direct result of leadership being reluctant to make the hard choices. An aversion to commitment. There's a great observation about this. Most leaders do not like to make choices. They'd rather keep their options open. This deep-seated psychological tendency, wanting flexibility, avoiding being pinned down, it's a huge barrier to strategic clarity.
Why is it so hard, though? Why do leaders shy away from making that clear, definitive strategic choice, even when the situation might demand it?
Well, a lot of it boils down to personal risk, making a big, bold choice. It forces their hands, pins them down, and generates an uncomfortable degree of personal risk.
Right.
Nobody wants to be the exec whose big strategic bet fails, right? Especially in a tough market. So this reluctance to commit fully, to say this is how we will compete and this is what we won't do, it can lead directly to being stuck in the middle.
So they avoid the personal risk.
Yes, but in doing so, they often choose to play, but not to win. They settle for maybe average results, avoid the potential blame of a failed bold move, but almost guarantee corporate mediocrity. No real power gets built.
And the problem just gets worse if there's disagreement or ambiguity right at the top, doesn't it? If the leadership team itself isn't aligned.
Exponentially worse, yes. Differing mental models of the market among the key strategists that can completely paralyze a company. There was that study of Chicago bankers, remember? Even long-term competitors in the same city couldn't agree on the key dimensions of competition in their own industry.
Wow. So if the leaders don't even agree on what the game is, let alone how their company should play to win, how can they possibly avoid getting stuck?
It's a critical point. It's where strategy breaks down internally. As the saying goes, the model is not the market, the map is not the territory. Without a shared understanding of the landscape, and critically, a decisive, agreed-upon strategy, the company's efforts just fragment. Different departments pull in different directions based on conflicting assumptions.
Resources get wasted, efforts contradict each other.
Exactly. The competitive thrust is weakened, the ability to build power is totally undermined. This lack of internal alignment often directly causes the lack of external differentiation or cost advantage. The organization effectively becomes its own worst enemy, ensuring it stays stuck right in that debilitating middle.
The discipline of strategic cohesion.
Okay, so making that tough, single strategic choice, committing to cost leadership, differentiation, or focus, that's step one. A huge step. But then comes the execution. Ensuring the entire organization actually lives and breathes that strategy day in, day out. Every department, every employee, that feels like another monumental challenge. How do you get that kind of discipline, that cohesion across the whole company so everyone's pulling together towards that chosen strategy, actively building its power?
It requires more than just alignment on paper. It needs this deep, pervasive organizational commitment. The strategy has to become part of the culture, part of how things are done. Effective executives, as Peter Drucker noted, focus on jobs they'll do especially well, but more strategically, they put their best people on opportunities rather than on problems.
Focus resources where they matter most for the strategy.
Exactly. The practice in Japan of matching best people with the best opportunities is cited as a strength. It's not just hiring talent. It's strategically deploying your best people to drive the chosen strategy forward. Everyone, from the top floor to the front line, needs to see how their work directly contributes to that overarching strategic goal, to building that power. And this alignment isn't just about resources. It's fundamentally about clear, consistent, compelling communication. From the very top, employees want to know where the business is going and what they need to focus on. There's an example of a CEO whose failure to articulate a clear vision led directly to a lack of alignment within his top management team.
If the leaders aren't even on the same page?
How can anyone else be? That lack of clarity cascades down, creates confusion, undermines execution. The message has to be constant, clear, and reinforced.
It really sounds like if the leadership isn't crystal clear and unwavering, the whole ship just starts to drift. That ambiguity, that lack of shared purpose, it must be incredibly damaging, not just to morale, but to competitiveness.
Absolutely. Look at Satya Nadella at Microsoft. He acknowledged that period of lack of accountability and finger-pointing when the company was kind of drifting strategically. He recognized that job one was to build hope. That transformation, that renewed push for power had to start from within. Clearly articulating the strategy and vision isn't just a nice to have, it's essential for forging that internal cohesion, uniting everyone under a common banner, giving meaning and direction to their work. Without it, you get silos, duplicated effort, people working against each other without even realizing it. The military has a stark term for that internal conflict: blue on blue, friendly fire, fratricide, described as the worst thing that could happen.
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
It really illustrates the damage when internal teams or individuals work at cross purposes. It's often a direct symptom of unclear strategy. Different parts of the organization end up fighting each other instead of the real competition, just burning precious energy and eroding power.
And it goes even deeper than just vision and avoiding infighting, right? It gets into the actual systems, the incentives within the company.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
As Stephen Covey emphasized, if you put good people in bad systems, you get bad results. It's not always the people. Sometimes the system itself is the problem.
So the structure and incentives need to support the strategy.
Yes. He suggested things like win-win contracts, where compensation isn't just based on individual output, P, or production, but also on how people collaborate and build team capability, PC, or production capability. This kind of approach ensures the internal systems, metrics, rewards, processes actively reinforce the desired strategic behaviors: collaboration, focus, long-term thinking, rather than inadvertently encouraging short-term siloed actions that might look good individually but actually hurt the overall strategy and weaken the company's power. The whole ecosystem has to be aligned. But even if you achieve all that clear choice, internal cohesion, aligned systems, you still can't relax, not for a second. Because, as Richard Rumelt warns in Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, success leads to laxity and bloat, and these lead to decline. It's this predictable trajectory. And that very success opens the door to strategic upstarts.
Complacency sets in.
Exactly. Think about Canon finding ways around Xerox's patents to create a whole new copier business model. Or Walmart using superior logistics to completely outmaneuver Kmart. Or Google redefining search against established players. These were all cases where agile upstarts, armed with a tightly coordinated competitive strategy, a clear focus, maybe new technology or business model, successfully invaded markets dominated by incumbents who had perhaps grown complacent, losing their edge, their power.
So even with a clear, well-executed strategy, you absolutely cannot rest on your laurels. The competitive landscape is always shifting. New threats, new technologies, changing customer needs. It's a constant battle.
It is a continuous fight for relevance, for maintaining and constantly refreshing that power. And often, it's the established players who find this adaptation the hardest. Clayton Christensen's Innovator's Dilemma points out that attacking firms have an advantage in disruptive innovations.
Why is that?
Because established firms are usually optimized for their current business. Their processes, their values, their customer relationships, they're all geared towards sustaining innovations, making existing products better for existing customers. They find it incredibly difficult to pivot towards something truly disruptive, something that might cannibalize their current business or require a totally different model. Often they need to create entirely new capabilities, maybe even spin out separate units just to pursue those disruptive opportunities effectively.
So it's about recognizing when the game itself is changing and being willing to potentially change everything about how you compete.
Precisely. Being willing to reevaluate, challenge your own assumptions, and if necessary, fundamentally alter your strategy, maybe even your organization, to protect or build new power in that changing landscape.
We have covered a lot of ground today on the deep dive. We've really unpacked Michael Porter's 3 generic strategies: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Seeing them as these fundamental, deliberate choices for building competitive advantage, for achieving what Hamilton Helmer calls power.
Foundational choices.
We've seen how success demands that disciplined, company-wide commitment, from the top leadership right down to the operational details. And we've also really highlighted the dangers, the peril of strategic ambiguity, getting stuck in the middle by failing to choose clearly. That position seems almost guaranteed to lead to underperformance, to vulnerability.
A recipe for struggle, really.
It's not just abstract theory. This really feels like a masterclass in those core strategic decisions that make or break a company's ability to thrive long term.
And as we wrap up, reflecting on these big strategic choices, or maybe the lack of choice, I want to leave you with a thought that's maybe a bit provocative. It comes from Nassim Nicholas Taleb in The Black Swan. He observes, quite powerfully, once your mind is inhabited with a certain view of the world,
Hmm.
you will tend to only consider instances proving you to be right. Paradoxically, the more information you have, the more justified you will feel in your views.
Ah, the confirmation bias trap, seeing what we expect or want to see.
Exactly. And that bias, that tendency to seek out confirming evidence and ignore contradictory signals, can be incredibly dangerous, blinding even when you're making high-stakes strategic decisions in a world that's constantly changing.
That is a powerful and frankly unsettling thought. So, if the model is not the market, if our internal picture of how things work, how we should compete, might not match the messy, shifting reality out there, how can leaders, or even just us as observers, ensure our strategic map actually reflects that reality and isn't just confirming our existing beliefs what we want to be true?
How do you fight that confirmation bias?
Yeah. How do you know when it's really time to redraw that map completely, to challenge those deeply held assumptions that might be leading a company down the wrong path, slowly eroding its power? That feels like the ultimate strategic challenge. So we really encourage you, listening today, to think about the businesses you interact with every single day, your bank, your supermarket, the tech companies you use. Can you spot their main strategy? Are they clearly going for cost leadership,
Huh.
compelling differentiation, or a sharp focus?
See if you can map them onto these categories.
And maybe think about companies or organizations you see struggling. Could it be, after hearing this, that they're actually stuck in the middle, trying to be too many things and ending up not being strong enough at anything? Just being able to spot these strategic choices, or maybe the critical lack of them, that can be a real aha moment. It sharpens your whole understanding of the business world around you. Definitely something to mull over. Join us next time on The Deep Dive.